Hi there. Welcome to Mimblewimble, the Harry Potter podcast. I'm Aishwarya.
I'm Prashantini.
We're going to reread the Harry Potter books and discuss it over the course of our run. The episode title today is Harry Gets Sorted. We'll stop midway through Chapter 7, The Sorting Hat, when the Weasley twins say,
"We got Potter! We got Potter!"
Let's start from where we left off last episode when a wand chose Harry.
At the end of our last episode, Ollivander has given Harry some incredible information about how his wand shares a core with Voldemort's and how Ollivander and the world expects great things from Harry Potter. After hearing that, Harry is actually very quiet because he has been having a lot of self-doubt. Whatever Ollivander said only increased his self-doubt and fear. I mean, he doesn't know anything about magic and he just learnt about all this information in one day on his birthday. And now he's expected to do great things. So he's very quiet and pondering over how things are going to turn out in the future. Until Hagrid asks what's wrong with him and he expresses his doubt. When Hagrid says,
"Everyone starts at the beginning at Hogwarts. You'll be just fine."
I think that whatever Hagrid said meant a lot to Harry. And it makes sense because no matter what you see your parents do or what magic you see around you, it's not the same as learning from a teacher and performing it.
Yeah, very true.
And in the end, Hagrid drops him off at the Dursleys. He gives him the ticket to go to Hogwarts. And he says,
"Any problems with the Dursleys, send me a letter with your owl. She'll know where to find me."
Yeah, which is really peculiar, right? How do the owls know how to find people?
Within Harry Potter series, we don't really find the answer to that. There is an entry by J.K. Rowling in Pottermore that pretty much explains this. I'll just read an excerpt from the article. Whether because they possess an innate bent for magic or because generations of their ancestors have been domesticated and trained by wizards and they have inherited the traits that make this easy, owls learn very quick and seem to thrive on the task of tracing and tracking the witch or wizard for whom the letters are intended. So basically, the address you write on the envelope doesn't really matter. The owls basically understand what people are speaking and track people based on that. The addresses are only for if the owl gets intercepted or maybe dies somewhere and the letter is not delivered.
Or if the recipient is like, "Is this for me?" And the owl says, "Yes, dude, look at the address over here."
At the same time, if you don't want to be followed by owls everywhere, you can use some spells to basically repel it.
That is super interesting.
Then he goes to the Dursleys, who surprisingly accept him.
For the rest of the time that Harry spends with the Dursleys, they are very hands-off. They completely avoid Harry and let him do whatever he wants. So he just holds up in his bedroom, reads, looks through all of his books, which sounds like a fantastic holiday.
Yeah. I was very curious to know what was in that initial letter that Dumbledore left them. If their son got a pigtail because of Harry, and if they're still taking him in, what was said in that letter that is making them do these things?
Maybe there was a spell in the letter.
Interesting. Never thought of it that way.
Yeah, maybe, Dumbledore put some kind of charm that you look at it and you have to follow its instructions kind of thing. Maybe instead of making them see these, then Dumbledore was just I'm taking the shortcut. Harry looks through his books, which turn out to be pretty fun. He names his owl Hedwig. I looked up Hedwig because I thought maybe it's a link.
Means something.
Maybe it means something. And BuzzFeed thinks that she's the patron saint of dead children, but Wikipedia doesn't think so. I'm just going to believe Wikipedia on this front.
I think believing anything over BuzzFeed is better.
Hey, BuzzFeed does have some accurate information.
I know that you've been saying this for many years.
Yeah, they're reporting...
using this as an excuse to read their listicles.
BuzzFeed News is extremely good.
Our
one listener will probably agree with me. Time flies by. Next thing Harry knows, he has to go to Hogwarts the next day. And that's when he looks at his ticket and realizes that he has to go to London. So he decides to go and ask the Dursleys about going to London. But Uncle Vernon surprisingly agrees to take him with minimum wisecracking. He just says the train is a funny way to get to wizard school. Which I agree. It's a funny way to even get to normal school, in my opinion. But then again, I never went to boarding school. But then I thought about it. Maybe the train is a way of normalizing the book. Malrita's and St. Clair's. Both of those books sometimes involve the kids driving to school. But a lot of times they take the train with their friends. So the train is a way for everyone to catch up and bond before they get to school. And
when all also way more fun.
Yeah, It is more fun. There's a space for you to sit and talk and like play games and stuff like that. So all the new kids like meet people only on the train. So I thought maybe that's why she uses a train to make it a little bit more normal.
There's a lot more information she has given about trains, but I think it'll be too premature to talk about it right now.
Okay, yeah, we can talk about it next time a train pops up in the story, I guess.
Oh, one of the questions that we had in episode 1 was answered this time. They are watching a quiz show on TV.
Oh, okay.
When Harry interrupts.
Yeah. My favorite part of that interruption is that Dudley runs out of his room when Harry walks in. Like, sweet vengeance. And I also find it really weird that Dursleys waited a whole month to go to London and get the tail removed.
Yeah, that is... Yeah.
What did they think would happen? The tail would just disappear on its own? But when I also like realized that the Dursleys kind of hoped that it would go away, nobody came to provide a magical solution to this problem either.
Yeah, that is sad.
They just left a poor boy with a pig's tail. This is Penelope. Have you seen Penelope the movie?
No.
Penelope the movie has Christina Ricci in it, and she is born with a pig's nose.
Yeah, I know the story though.
Yeah. So this is kind of like Penelope. It's shaping up to be Penelope, except, poor Penelope had a pig's nose.
Penelope is also a nice person.
Yeah, she is. That's the whole movie.
Imagine explaining to someone how the pig's tail formed.
Yes. I feel really bad for them.
Yeah, that's probably the reason they waited
a whole month.
Yeah. Or maybe they thought that Harry would somehow come and reverse it. Maybe he'd learn something from the books and help them or something. I don't know.
They could have asked, but I guess that's too much to expect from the Dursleys.
Yeah.
So as to speak of.
Or it could be that they tried many doctors locally.
And then they're going to London, yeah, probably. Yeah. But still, they make it to the station with like minimum drama. When they get to the station, Harry's like really surprised to find how helpful the Dursleys are. Like Vernon actually puts his luggage onto a cart and like rolls it for him to like platform 10. And then they just leave him there. And they're like, hey, it looks like they're building your platform. Which made me wonder, why isn't there a welcoming committee there?
I was thinking about this a lot. Hagrid could have helped him with that, right? That's when I realized that the wizarding community is just they are so soaked into who they are that they don't understand how hard it is for new people to come and join this world. It's called the curse of knowledge. You know something so well that you don't understand how other people cannot know it.
So I guess nobody wondered how Harry would get onto platform 9 3/4, right?
Yeah, it's 9 3/4. Just ask around and come.
And which Harry tries. He asks a train guard, and the guard gets like increasingly peeved because Harry can't tell him where the train is going or like which station properly. And he just like when he asks about the 11 o'clock train, he says there is no 11 o'clock train, and Harry gets like increasingly confused until he heard the magic word, Muggle.
Yeah.
It's a red-headed family, and they are talking about how the train station is packed with muggles. And of course it's packed with muggles. It's a train station.
It's a muggles train station.
Yes.
The exposition is a little too much. We get it. They are magical people. You don't have to say muggles, and then you don't have to say, oh, what's the platform number again? As if everybody there went to Hogwarts.
I know. But I actually did like that the train station is in neutral territory, so as to speak of. It's not a wizard-only place. The entrance is restricted, but at least they put the entrance in a place that is reachable by non-magical folk as well.
Yeah.
That was pretty nice, which means that parents with children going to Hogwarts, non-magical parents with children, will still at least be able to come to the train station with them.
We start listening to the conversation that the Weasleys are having. There's a Mrs. Weasley, there are Fred and George who are twins and they are like pulling their mother's leg.
And then there's the prefect, Percy.
All around, the atmosphere they are creating is completely different than what Harry has seen with the Dursleys. He approaches Mrs. Weasley when he notices that the first guy who passes the barrier, Percy, he does so in a way that Harry could not notice. So he goes up to Mrs. Weasley and asks her how to get past the barrier, and she's like, run at it. And I think that is a pretty bad advice.
I agree.
If you can get through the barrier, you can still walk there.
Yes. Or, this is spoiler, but later on in the books, when they go Hogwarts again, and yes, they do go back to Hogwarts for more than 1 year. There are points where they just walk to the barrier, lean against it, and fall back into platform 9 3/4, which I think is definitely the most sensible way of doing it. Instead of running in the middle of a packed railway station at a barrier.
When you are not really sure if you can get through.
Yes.
But other than that, I loved her right away. The way she's talking to her kids, the way she behaves when she discovers who that little boy who asked for help
I
is.
agree. She gives such sensible advice. I think she says something along the lines of don't gawk at him like he's in a zoo, which is definitely very, very good advice to give your children.
Then they all get through the barrier. There's also this boy called Ron who's tall and gangly. He doesn't seem to be as upbeat as his twin brothers. And there's also Ginny. She seems to be crying because she cannot go to the school just yet. Yeah, Harry gets introduced to all these people because he's sitting in the train and he's overhearing them talk.
I guess you're forgetting that Fred and George actually help him get his luggage on the
Yeah.
train, even before they find out that he's Harry Potter, which I think is very sweet. Seriously, they're actually helping. They're not bullying people. They're not.
They are not the bullies.
They're not throwing their weight around and being like, first year, get out of my way and stuff. They're actually being very helpful to someone who they saw being like alone and scared.
Fred and George are like the heroes of this particular chapter after the Sorting Hat, maybe. The humor that they have, I think it'll make Harry feel very comfortable because one of the jokes they make.
Their mother had just taken out her handkerchief. "Ron, you've got something on your nose." The youngest boy tried to jerk out of the way, but she grabbed him and began rubbing the end of his nose. "Mum, get off!" He wriggled free. "Ah, has Ickle Ronnie got something on his nosy?" said one of the twins.
They are mocking what the Dursleys do every day. And I mean, when you read, the humor is actually very apparent, but when you listen to Stephen Fry's audiobook version, he's not two people, so it's hard to basically do the to and fro thing that Fred and George do with a lot of dialogues. So he's kind of slow.
"Oh, are you a prefect, Percy?" said one of the twins with an air of great surprise. "You should have said something. We had no idea." "Hang on, I think I remember him saying something about it," said the other twin. "Once or twice. A minute. All summer." "Oh, shut up," said Percy.
And I thought that the essence of the joke is lost that way.
Speaking of editions, I was just going to talk about how I'm reading the illustrated edition of Harry Potter, and in that, this particular point, there is this beautiful picture which ends up being the cover of the edition itself of Harry on the platform, and there are lots of people around him. He's looking up at the train. There's sort of like a wistfulness on his face, but he's also like really thrilled that like he can't believe that he's there. And there are lots of little lovely elements that are there throughout the picture, right? There are lots of cats wandering around, but which made me wonder like, why cats? Like, why not dogs, birds, whatever? Why is a cat a Hogwarts pet? Probably because of, like witches have cats and they have toads. Yeah. They have rats, so I assume that's why the pets are.
They have rats?
Oh yeah, rats' brains is a very common.
Oh
yeah.
So J.K. Rowling in that entry about owls, she actually mentioned that cats and owls are supposed to be magical.
Yeah, and this picture also has this, which turns out to be a recurring theme in the illustrated edition. There's a flying pig on the engine.
Oh.
Yeah, there's like pig with wings on the engine, and the chimney spout of the engine is shaped like a dragon.
I'll check it out. Harry also sees some characters like Neville and Lee on his way to his seat. He sits in his seat and he overhears what the Weasleys are saying about him. It's natural for Harry to be so fascinated about the Weasleys because he doesn't have a family, let alone a functional family. I read this very interesting article which was on this website called humanpursuits.com. It's called Why Harry Potter is Great Literature. The article itself is very good, but there's one particular thing that he calls out about Harry's fascination and affinity towards family. I'll just quote from the article. If Harry were a Disney character, he would either abandon his family to chase his dream, or the fact that he's mysteriously missing at least one parent would be irrelevant to him. But in Rowling's world, orphan Harry wants nothing more than a family. In fact, in a reversal of the millennial moral imagination, when he's unofficially adopted by one, he's willing to sacrifice everything else to protect it. It goes against everything the millennials want, which is like independence and going after passion. But even through the course of the series, we realize that Harry, in fact, doesn't have passion. He's put into positions where he has to act, but he's driven more towards protecting people around him. The author cites it as one of the reasons why Harry Potter is great literature, and I completely agree.
Yeah, I never realized that. That is very interesting. So I'm curious, do you think the train uses tracks that Muggles don't know exist?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think Muggle trains run on the same tracks.
I'm not certain. So, or do they like switch tracks?
Interesting. Actually, the train goes a long way. That means they would have to hide a lot. If they use the same tracks as the Muggles, then The Muggles can see the train.
Not necessarily. Maybe they think the train is going somewhere else. Maybe they just like switch schedules around.
It's a steam train. I am sure people will notice it wherever it's going.
That is true. I am not certain.
Yeah, we have to figure that out. Maybe the next time we're talking about trains, we'll have a better explanation for these things.
Yeah. So Harry's like sitting down and the compartment's empty until Ron decides to come join Harry. And
the first thing Ron asks is whether he has that scar.
Yeah.
And if he remembers anything.
Yeah.
He's awkward enough when he's doing that. And he seems to be pretty bummed out about going to the school also.
Yeah, because he had 5 brothers go to Hogwarts before him, and he talks about how everything is a hand-me-down. Like, he has Bill's old robes, and Charlie's old wand, and Percy's old rat. And I think that's kind of depressing. Yeah. But as Harry tells him, it's not like Harry had a lot of things before he came to Hogwarts anyway. So when they're equally fascinated by each other, Ron is fascinated by Harry Potter, the myth, and Harry's fascinated by normal child from loving family. What is it like out there, right? And they're both, and he's so interested in the fact that Ron is from a wizarding family where magic is practically taken for granted.
Yeah.
Right, the fact that magic exists. So they're like extremely interested in finding out, things about each other. And they bond over food. When the lady with the trolley comes along and asks, if they want any sweets, Harry jumps up and buys the whole trolley because he has more money than he's ever had in his life, and he wants everything looks supremely interesting.
When Ron says that he has a sandwich and Harry's like, it's okay, we'll share. I guess even though he did not have a friend,
food will win him friends, yes. Harry has learned all the right lessons. I think any other author might have spent some time dwelling about how Harry feels so ashamed of not having had enough money or having had to wear Dudley's hand-me-downs and stuff. But J.K. Rowling doesn't. Harry just matter of fact says, yes, I don't think there's anything wrong with not having money because I didn't have any. And he's just very accepting of that.
And what interesting snacks they buy.
I know, right?
I mean, how did she think about these things?
I think she just adapted some of the pasties. We find cauldron cakes and pumpkin pasties. Well,
okay, they are the least interesting.
People have tried making them, by the way.
I know.
There are some really fun stuff like Bertie's every flavor beans.
That's a very interesting idea. I don't know why we are not doing it. It's not magical.
Bertie's
Do we have something like that?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, you're right. It's not magical. Maybe it's not easy to make.
There are chocolate and frogs.
No, and I love that in the movie they really animate that frog. It actually jumps around. You have to catch it and then put it in your mouth, which is horrific. Also to think about when in the book they talk about Harry biting the frog's head off, I assume it's eating a gummy bear, right? When you bite the gummy bear's head off, the gummy bear is not flailing and screaming.
I don't think the chocolate frog would
that's what it feels like in my head.
It just jumps around. I don't think they eat it at all. It's like Ron says, it's for the cards.
That's true. I love that when Harry sees the chocolate frog, there's a line that says he was starting to feel like nothing would surprise him. Famous last words, Harry. Famous last words.
The next thing he's looking at pictures and it's moving.
Yes. I love that there's a gotta collect them all kind of feeling, like with Pokemon. In the illustrated edition, this is where we first actually see a picture of Dumbledore. There is a picture of how he appears in the card and he's eating lemon drops. And he looks an extraordinary amount like my favorite Dumbledore, Richard Harris, the first Dumbledore. Richard Harris was Dumbledore in Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone and in Chamber of Secrets, but he died unfortunately when they were wrapping up the shooting for Chamber of Secrets. So they cast a new Dumbledore, Michael Gambon, who I loathe from the bottom of my heart.
I don't mind him.
He puts a rubber band on the beard.
He's more active.
He's too active. But we will get to that in book 4.
I like that J.K. Rowling just casually name-dropped Ptolemy and how he's a wizard.
Yeah, she does that all over the place, right? So Agrippa was a Roman consul. I don't know how to pronounce that word. Consul. And he was a friend of Octavian, who was Caesar's heir, right? There was also a philosopher and an astronomer called Agrippa, who was said to be the great-great-grandfather to Romulus and Remus, who founded Rome. He did a lot of cool things, apparently. He renovated aqueducts to give everybody access to public quality water.
For some reason, everybody in Rome at that point, anybody in position of power has something to do with aqueducts.
Water was a very serious problem at that time. And as someone who has played Caesar 3, I can tell you it is very difficult to get it right. You spend an awful lot of time arranging the aqueducts in that game. I swear. And I found it really interesting that there are 12 uses of dragon blood and that Dumbledore enjoys chamber music.
Yeah, what is that?
I think it's something like opera music, but I'm not certain. The other fun name drop is Morgana, who is a witch from King Arthur's time. So like Merlin, Morgana, right? And there are also like some other names that Circe is from the Odyssey. She's the witch that he meets on the island. But lots of other people that she name drops are actual real people. Like Paracelsus was a Swiss physician and alchemist apparently. Wasn't Galileo condemned by the church on charges of heresy because he said that the earth was not the center of the universe as was widely believed at that time? Makes total sense that they condemned scientists as witches and wizards.
I don't know if it was
anyone who challenges beliefs was probably considered as heretic.
More than heresy, what I would say is if someone's extraordinary, humanizing them is bad for people who are already mediocre. So they call them either heroes or witches and wizards to take them away from the humankind and put them in this separate
bracket.
Yeah. I mean, achieving great things is normal for them. Us humans, we are just going to be...
Yeah, because they probably have like extra help, like from God or level or
exactly.
whatever.
What were we talking about?
So we were originally talking about the chocolate frog cards.
Okay.
But we can move on to talking about vertibot every flavor beans. Because peppermint is not an ordinary flavor no matter what you say. Seriously, I will never believe that. Spinach, liver and tripe, gross. Toast, grass and curry, gross. Like what happened to Rocky Road? Why isn't it a flavor of anything?
Ron's behavior throughout this whole train ride reminded me a lot of myself when I was younger. He's always thinking about what other people would think of him. He's so conscious about it. Most kids are. You wonder if your parents are cool enough. You wonder if whatever you're bringing for lunch is cool. It reminded me of this particular dialogue from Modern Family. Manny is getting bullied in school and Mitch tells him that...
This is the funny thing about growing up. For years and years, everybody's desperately afraid to be different, in any way. And then suddenly, almost overnight, everybody wants to be different. And that is where we win.
I really like the dialogue from that show and it fit here perfectly.
Oh, there's also this line that Ron says about his brothers that really hurt. He says that everyone expects me to do as well as the others, but if I do, it's no big deal because they did it first. And that says a lot about how Ron felt growing up. Having 5 brothers can be really frustrating.
Not only are they just 5 brothers, most of them are overachieving and 2 of them are Fred and George.
Yes.
The funniest people in this book. I can understand the pressure.
But Harry and Ron are having fun, like, they're eating, they're chatting, and Harry's having the time of his life, and then suddenly there's a boy in there who's asking about a toad.
Yeah.
That's missing. Is there a boy in there or a girl in there?
Boy first.
Boy first.
Then boy with the girl.
Boy with girl.
An incredibly bossy girl.
Yeah. But at that point, Ron is trying to demonstrate a spell that he learned from his brother.
Which is really strange. Is Harry the only person who got this warning with the letter that they should not do magic? Eventually, Hermione also says that she's been practicing a few magic spells.
She performs a spell in the movie. She uses a reparo spell to repair glasses, but that doesn't happen in the book.
Oh, you mean she doesn't perform anything? She just learns a few things.
I think the movie just put that in the interest of speeding up the narrative. Like, they were like, we don't want to spend a lot of time establishing that Hermione can do magic. Let's just show her forming a spell.
Hermione is smarter than everybody else.
Yes.
Especially Ron and Harry.
But Ron's spell is really funny and I cannot believe he thought it was a spell.
Sunshine, daisies, buttermellow, turn this stupid fat rat yellow.
Which does not work as predicted. There's a jet of light and Scabbers just doesn't move. He scampers off or something.
I don't know. Jet of light is from a movie.
Yeah, jet of light is from the movie. Okay, yes. Which I've written down here. It says there's jet of light in the movies. Dump. But then Hermione goes on and introduces herself, and my favorite line in her introduction is that she's learned all of her set books by heart, and the only thing Harry takes away from the whole speech is that he looks at Ron and thinks that doesn't look like the face that learned all the set books by heart.
Even I noted that. I mean, he did read some of the books. I don't know why he's so worried.
Yeah, I know. He flipped through them. He picked a name. That means he's read enough of the books, right?
But unlike Fred and George's banter, Hermione's fast-paced talking was done very well by Stephen Ray.
Are you sure that's a real spell? Said the girl. Well, it's not very good, is it? I've tried a few simple spells just for practice, and it's all worked for me. Nobody in my family's magic at all. It was ever such a surprise when I got my letter, but I was ever so pleased, of course. I mean, it's the very best school of witchcraft there is, I've heard. I've learned all our set books off by heart, of course. I just hope it'll be enough. I'm Hermione Granger, by the way. Who are you?
Because it's one person.
Yeah.
So I'll admit to not knowing how to pronounce her name. And when I was reading the first book. Like, I had never encountered Hermione when I first read this, as in when I read this book, right? The only Hermione I know even now is from Shakespeare's A Winter's Tale. Queen Hermione. I had never even like come across the name before, so I thought it was pronounced Hermione. I just
like as it's written.
As it's written, right? And then I think that's why J.K. Rowling went to that effort to like, phonetically write her name out in book 4. So,
even I don't know how I pronounced it. Sometimes I just like skip over
names. I know in my head. So for a long time, I didn't talk about these books to anybody because no one I knew was reading them. But when I was like 12 or 13, there was actually someone who read the books. And I was talking about this to her and I was telling her, so Hermione's always been one of my favorite characters. Like top 5, Hermione is definitely there. Because I feel her. There's a lot, later on in this particular episode, we'll come across a line that she says, which could have been said by me. I say similar things all the time, right? So I really feel Hermione. Should I just go ahead and say it now?
Okay, say it.
It's when she says that the Great Halls has been bewitched to look like the night sky outside, and then she says, I read about it in Hogwarts, the history.
That is you.
Yes. And then she's a kindred spirit for me.
You're calling yourself a know-it-all, but it's cool now. So.
Yes. I'm fine with being a know-it-all. Only way to make myself indispensable.
True. I don't know if we are pronouncing it right even now.
We are. We've seen the movies. Hermione.
But when the teaching actually happens, she says Hermione.
She says Hermione. Yeah.
Where's the O?
Yeah, Hermione. So
yeah, so we say Hermione.
Oh. But I like this pronunciation.
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep it.
Yeah, we are going to say Hermione.
Hermione realizes she's talking to Harry Potter. So she says, oh, I came across you in X, X and X. And then she says, I'd have found out everything I could if it were me.
Even me.
Yeah, but like Harry didn't really have the opportunity. Actually, he did. He was in Flourish and Blotts and he could have very easily Hagrid could have very easily just given him a book summarizing recent visiting events, but that would have been no fun. I mean, we would have basically had an info dump in like the beginning of this chapter.
And okay, Harry doesn't really have the drive to do things as yet, I would say, because he's so obedient. He actually doesn't try to do any magic. We know that from Harry later on in the series, we know that he breaks a lot of rules. So it is very surprising that he hasn't yet.
Yeah, because all this time breaking rules gets him punishment, so he's been conditioned.
But he broke them anyway.
Yeah.
He didn't break rules by on his own. Like, he didn't want to break them. It just broke because of his magical abilities.
Yeah. So now he's voluntarily not breaking anything.
Yeah, and what is this thing about dirt that they keep saying?
Yeah, dirt on his nose. I guess it's a joke I don't get. But we're missing the most important part where Harry and Ron have this discussion about something that happened at Gringotts.
Yeah.
A high security vault was broken into and Harry feels a prickle in his car.
What?
Yeah,
he doesn't. Yeah. He doesn't feel a prickle in his car.
He does. Oh, he was starting to get a prickle of fear. Never mind. I see prickle and I'm like, yeah, scar. Yeah. Ron realizes that Harry doesn't know anything about Quidditch, so he tries considerably better than Hagrid to explain what Quidditch does.
Once Harry hears the news about the vault, the first question he asks is what happened to them, because he remembers the poem. And nothing happened. So Ron says that's the reason everybody's saying that you know who's probably behind it. You kind of understand how it is.
The atmosphere of fear.
Yeah. Because even though people have not seen Voldemort for a long time, his dead body is not found. So it's going to be a great time to be a conspiracy theorist. Everything is going to be about Voldemort.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So then they talk about Quidditch.
Yeah, and then the pale pointy boy from Madame Malkin's like waltzes into the compartment to introduce himself.
And he's like, so it's true.
Yeah. I mean, he introduces himself like James Bond. He's like, the name is Malfoy. Draco Malfoy. Like, come on, dude. It clearly shows that the emphasis that he places on his family name or anyone's family name over their first name. Also, hilariously, his last name means bad faith in French. And Draco means dragon. So his name is Dragon Bad Faith.
So I was trying to find out why that name is funny, because he says that popular opinion is it's not.
What is funny?
Draco Malfoy.
Why
he says, think my name is funny to you.
No, I mean, I also thought it was really funny that Ronald Weasley laughed at Draco Malfoy.
People said that he was probably laughing because someone like Draco Malfoy is talking to Harry Potter like that.
But which actually sets up this antagonistic relationship between them. I mean, Malfoy comes and tries to introduce himself and Ron laughs at him and Malfoy immediately snaps into like super mean mode on, right? Where like it's Mean Girls where he says,
Think my name's funny, do you? No need to ask who you are. My father told me all the Weasleys have red hair, freckles, and more children than they can afford.
They don't hold back.
Yeah.
And he already has like 2 cronies. How did they find each other so soon?
They knew each other from when they were children. So after Draco goes all like mean girls on them, Scabbers attacks when they try to take the sweets that Harry and Ron have. Which, how did Scabbers even know how to attack at that point?
He just bites Goyles.
Still, why did he attack?
Probably
And then like
it was delicious.
Goyle like shakes Scabbers off. He hits the window, falls back down, and goes to sleep.
Yeah, first Ron says it's probably knocked out. And how do you know the difference between knocked out and sleeping in a rat?
I have no idea. And then like Hermione comes back and says, change into your robes.
Why are you going around doing this service?
She says she came in because the people were behaving very childishly, running and up and down the corridors, which I think was Malfoy, Crabbe and Goyle getting away from the compartment.
I think people probably were behaving childishly. And imagine 11-year-olds, not all of them are going to be like Harry and Ron. Both of them are feeling awkward.
Yeah, and I imagine Hermione does get bossy when she's feeling awkward.
She seems like the kind of person who doesn't have friends.
Maybe this is
She's okay with being whoever she is because no matter what she is going to do, she's not going to have friends.
Maybe this is her way of becoming friends with people. She's like, I'm bossing you around, you are my friends.
Yeah, listen to me because I give good advice, which is true.
Right, so they change into their robes. Okay, they get off the train and Hagrid's there and he's shepherding all the first years into like a separate path. He's like, first year's over here, and he calls everybody over to him and they walk down this path and they get their first view of Hogwarts. It's this beautiful castle across a lake and it is amazing in the illustrated edition. It is the Hogwarts from the first movie, which is my favorite Hogwarts.
There are different Hogwarts in movies?
There are different Hogwartses between each movie.
Oh.
Yes, they add different things. The Hogwarts of the third movie has a random bridge. The Hogwarts of the first movie is the Hogwarts I imagined. When I saw the same Hogwarts in the book, it feels nice. There's a little thrill. Even though there's no such thing as the right imagination. My imagination was the right imagination. But it's really nice that they like put some effort into giving the first years like a proper view and thrill. You know, and then they're like these little boats that they get into, and the boats just like, you know, they just take off by themselves. They're gliding across the water. Hagrid like shepherds them to the castle and knocks on the door 3 times. An interesting thing is every chapter in the illustrated edition has a title card, which is usually a reference to something quirky in the chapter itself. For instance, chapter 7's title card is what looks like a zoomed in picture of the castle, and we see our flying pig again. Our flying pig is there and our dragon, they're both there.
Oh.
We will be tracking the flying pig across this podcast.
So then we move on to the next chapter, the Sorting Hat.
Yeah, but we immediately meet someone that we know already, but Harry doesn't know that we met them, thus increasing dramatic tension. This is a tall black-haired witch in emerald green robes. Right? She's like really stern and she says she'll take the kids. And
for some reason, when I first read the book, I thought she was a villain. It's because of the movie. They'll first focus on her hand. She's tapping her fingers on the banister, and then they show her back, where we see the tall hat that she's wearing, and then she talks to the kids. And there's the sinister background music also going on there.
And she's also wearing emerald green, which we know is a sign of dark magic. She gives a rundown of the sorting ceremony.
Very succinct, as opposed to the information that Hagrid has given Harry.
Yeah.
She talks about the houses.
But she doesn't actually say how they'll be sorted. She talks about how once they're sorted into the separate houses, your house is like your family, you basically sleep there, eat there, you spend time in the common room, you go to classes with the people from your house. She talks about the different houses themselves, Hufflepuff, Gryffindor, Ravenclaw and Slytherin. And then she leaves them to wait in the chamber while
She also says that they should basically earn points for the house and make sure that each house competes to get the house cup. Then she leaves saying that she'll call them later, and
just as there's like peak panic in the room, right? Like Ron is like really worried because Fred and George told him that, you know, that it's like really painful, the sorting ceremony. So he talks about how they were going on about wrestling a troll, which sounds like a really fun sorting ceremony, I admit. And Hermione is like really fastly muttering spells to herself, which I swear to God, if I'd been there, I would have tried to strangle her.
Also, she would have read about it.
That's true. She's read Hogwarts a history.
Yeah.
That's very true. Oh my God, I didn't realize that. Diabolical Hermione.
Well, I think there was a mistake there. But anyway, yeah, everybody's like at peak panic. And random ghosts pop in and they're discussing about someone or something called Peeves and how he's causing a lot of havoc.
I think the fat friar will be talking to the first years. He says, I hope you'll be in my house. McGonagall says, the sorting ceremony is about to start. And these guys are ushered out into the hall. And there are like 4 long tables. And there are ghosts and students sitting at the tables. And they're led to this stool with a patched and frayed hat on it. So everybody's like looking at the hat. So Harry also like, okay, let's just look at the hat.
Should I pull a rabbit out of it? Valid question.
Very valid question, I agree. And then the hat starts to sing.
Yeah.
Which really should have been in the movie. I swear.
Really?
Yeah.
I was going to ask you what you thought about that. I thought that J.K. Rowling is just trying to be Tolkien with all these songs and all. I feel like it doesn't suit
What
her.
songs and all? This is literally the only song in the book. If it were Tolkien, you'd have had 5 songs by now. He'd be singing on the train about leaving the Dursleys back.
Anyway, I was not a big fan of the song, but I guess that's like the only way to give a rundown on what each house is. The song itself says that Slytherins are very cunning, which was
Yeah,
weird.
thanks for like characterizing a bunch of 11-year-olds.
Later on, the Sorting Hat basically changes some of the words. The first book is very different compared to the rest of the series. It's only black and white. I guess that's for more clarity for kids who are reading it. But later on, a lot of things change.
Yeah, it gets a little bit more nuanced, I agree. And so everybody like starts putting on the hat, as McGonagall calls their name, alphabetically, right? And Harry gets like more and more nervous. He also notices that for some people, the hat is able to tell almost instantly. Like for instance, Malfoy, the hat is barely on when it shouts Slytherin. For Neville, it takes so long that Neville actually forgets to take the hat off when it says Gryffindor, right? And he also notices that Hermione Granger was sorted into Gryffindor. When Harry puts on the hat, there's a small voice in his head that's talking about, you know, the things it sees in his mind, which is also kind of creepy. He has courage and talent and he wants to prove himself. Harry is like, not Slytherin. And
Because of all the things that he's heard so far.
about Slytherin being evil, and even the hat itself said it's for cunning people. And the hat actually listens to him.
Yeah.
And it's your choice that matters because he becomes Gryffindor.
In the movie version of this, the hat is actually very sinister.
But where to put you?
Not Slytherin. Not Slytherin.
Not Slytherin, eh? Are you sure? You could be great, you know. It's all here in your head. And Slytherin will help you on the way to greatness. There's no doubt about that.
But I love whoever voiced the hat in the movie because it says not Slytherin. It's a really nice way, the way the hat talks in the movie. Yeah.
And then the whole of Gryffindor table erupts into cheers because Harry has been put into Gryffindor and they're also proud. And Fred and George Weasley just start chanting.
We got Potter, yeah.
And the sorting goes on for a few more people and finally
Ron gets into Gryffindor as well. Harry is super happy because the one sort of friend that he has gets into the same house, even though the annoying girl has been sorted in the same house as well.
I don't think he's bothered about that. It's only Ron. Just having a friend next to him has made him brave enough to stand up to people like Malfoy.
I mean, Malfoy is basically Dudley's stand-in right now.
Yeah, but do you think he stood up to
Yes,
Dudley?
I think he did because he clearly is on the run from Dudley and his friends a lot.
He runs
Yeah.
from them.
Yeah.
He doesn't stand up to them because he can clearly be beaten. But having one person next to him, even though the other team looks like bulky and can beat him up in a second, I think that makes a lot of difference.
I'll also admit that a lot of my favorite fanfiction diverge from canon at this particular point about where Harry gets sorted. It's a pivotal moment, right? Like which house he goes to, who his friends are. Like, would he really have continued being friends with Ron if he'd been sorted into another house? I mean, people have mapped different paths from here where like, what if he had become a Hufflepuff? There's a fanfiction called Harry the Hufflepuff, by the way. What if he joined Slytherin? Or what if one of the other characters, like Hermione for instance, had been sorted into Slytherin? And I would highly recommend you guys read it if this sounds interesting.
Yeah, we'll put up the links on the website. That brings us to the end of today's episode. In the next episode, we will talk about events leading up to Harry becoming a Seeker. So that is chapter 9, The Midnight Duel. Thank you for listening. If you like this episode, don't forget to rate us and subscribe to Mimblewimble, the Harry Potter podcast. If you would like to discuss this episode with us or with your fellow Mimblewimble listeners, please leave a comment on our website, mimblewimble.in. So until next time, bye.
Bye.